Movements that have changed our world, such as marriage equality, civil rights, or climate action, don't just share powerful messaging, but a belief in people's aspirations and their ability to create change. At a time when so many causes are competing for attention, the big question is, how do we tell stories and build campaigns that don't just raise awareness, but actually mobilize millions? That's where asset framing comes in. Today, I'm joined by Doug Hadaway, president of Hadaway Communications, who will dive into some data builders who are ready, willing, and able to support our aspirations. Doug, thank you for joining me.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. So before we dive into the big part of the conversation and dig into history and audience research, what's the one main point you want people to learn or stop doing when it comes to building movements, especially through asset framing?
I would say right now is to focus on solutions. People are well aware of the problems. One of the biggest obstacles movements face today is a lack of belief that change is possible. So really focusing on the solutions, lifting up the problem solvers, the people who are doing the work and getting things done, that's what people need to see more than anything. My firm just conducted research. We conduct audience research for movement building. And through the lens of why people get involved in good causes, how they want to get involved, what kinds of actions they want to take. And our latest survey, which is just done over the summer, found for the first time over a majority, 54% of adults in the United States saying they want to make a positive difference now. So give them hope.
Yeah.
They just need to know what to do.
Yeah. There's an episode of a show that put me to sleep when I was a kid almost every night. I used to get in trouble because I was supposed to be asleep, but I would be watching late night TV, all the old shows, Jefferson's, Mama's Family, Mama's House, and I would bust out laughing, and it would get me in trouble. And so there was an episode of The Golden Girls where they were trying to solve for a senior citizen. She had run out of money, was being put into a home, and they had went to the office to, talk about what could happen. And the service worker was so overwhelmed, he said, everybody's just bringing me problems.
Right.
And that seems to be where people start,
Yep.
is with the problem. But recently, and of course, through the work that we've been doing, everyone is like, what's the big picture? What's the solution? What is the end goal? What is the win that we want to share with folks? How does that change kind of the direction of a campaign when you start with the goal, the win, the solution?
It gets people moving faster and in different ways. So asset framing, I love and have learned a ton working with Trabian Shorters and BME over the years, because it aligns very well with the work that my company does, and we call aspirational communication.
Yes.
Which is grounded in social science, motivational psychology, things like that. And ultimately, in our heart of hearts, our behaviors are driven by our aspirations, our ideas about the kind of people we want to be, and the kind of community we want to live in, and the kind of world we want to live in. In our heart of hearts, that's what drives us. So when you can start there, connect your cause, whatever it is, your goal, to people's aspirations for their lives, you are by definition talking to things that really matter to them and motivate them, meaning move them to take action. So starting with the goal, the solution, as you said, the vision, people are working toward that future they can picture in their mind's eye. That's another insight from the science. We're more likely to take action to achieve a goal we can picture. So give people a vision. That's real, not like some BS vision statement that sits in a document somewhere. Paint the picture. That's what gets people moving. And we did research for BME to identify people want to take action to support the aspirations of African Americans. And there's millions of them, and they're looking to help achieve goals, not just shout about problems. Not that that's not important too, but they're different.
Starting there is where the issue is. Not, identifying the problem is not the issue, but starting with that is. And I have to tell you that I started using aspirational communications after we worked together. that term.
Excellent.
Yes. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And speaking of the research, were tasked and commissioned to do some audience research for Be Me, and the results of that has pushed us in a direction that helps us further tell the story of asset framing and bringing people together across political divides and lines, especially in this time of deep polarization. So tell us about that research and what were the findings?
Yes, that was a national study. Be Me was looking to mobilize 100,000 people was the goal. So a very specific goal, which is a good place to start. Brought in the audience of people that we can mobilize to support Black leaders and the goals we're working on. So that's where we start. And started, of course, in giving your audience a bit of how do we do this? We start with the authentic aspiration of the leaders. So we started with conversations with Be Me leaders around the country, is asking them, what are you working on in your community? And they're doing very tangible, meaningful things in their community, starting businesses, coaching young people, all kinds of things. So we start there. What are you trying to achieve? Okay, now let's go to, in this case, a representative sample of the adult population in the US. So we surveyed a couple thousand people, which is the usual approach, get 2,000 something people who represent the demographic diversity of the country. And we start with explaining Be Me's mission and describing the aspirations through the lens of the love agenda, live, own, vote, excel, and phrasing them all as goal statements. We want to start businesses, et cetera. So each component of the love agenda framed as a goal, and then start that way. These are our goals. Here's who we are, Black leaders working across the country to achieve these things. And then ask people, do you want to help? Would you be, and we ask different kinds of questions, but we start with the emotional. That's an important thing that we teach a lot from the communication science. The heart and the head work together. Our emotions help us focus on the things we care about and move us to act. So we ask people how these messages make them feel. And the average is on a scale of 0 to 100. How warm does it make you feel about this group of leaders and these goals? And our average response was over 80%. And then we ask all kinds of questions, not about opinions on issues, which is public opinion polling. This is aspirational questions, getting at what kind of people they are and what kind of people they strive to be. So there are questions about awareness of racial equity or problems of racial discrimination, that sort of thing, but also, what do you like to do in your free time? That sort of thing. And we identified several groups that have different sort of mindsets toward the goals, and we call those audience segments. And one segment, which we called the builders, were folks who wanted to support African-American aspirations, achieve those goals of the love agenda in a way that was very solutions-oriented, versus another group was more like outraged about the problem, which is absolutely legit, right? But this was, the builders are like, they're focused on the solutions. And that was an audience of 39 million people.
So tell us more about this builder audience. Trabian often talks about the fixers and the builders and the mindsets and the mentality, and how things have changed over time. Baby boomers are phasing out of all levels of power and control. Influence still there, but phasing out. They were motivated by different narratives versus Gen X, who was motivated by one narrative, the millennials, and now Gen Z motivated by a different narrative, but we're all experiencing AI, the newness of it at the same time. But there were some huge commonalities and stark, I guess, either revelations based on the data of this profile of 39 million fixers that come from different sides of the aisle in many areas. So tell us more about
the builder profile or persona, we call it, are optimistic. They believe tomorrow can be better. They believe the next generation will have more opportunity. That's not a widespread belief in America today. So these are people, that's a very special kind of person who believes that. They have what in the social science we call system efficacy. They believe the system can be changed. And they have self-efficacy. They believe they can contribute and make a difference. So you see how that's a very action-oriented profile versus if you're focused on the problems and your main emotion is outrage over problems versus optimism about solutions, you can motivate people to protest and contribute money to causes, that sort of thing. These are both, and that's what we call, what Travian's referring to as fixers, tend to be more protest-oriented, focused on problems. Both can be mobilized for goals. What BME determined was, we're the builders. We're going to focus on builders, right? That's us, right? So that's also a smart, strategic way to think. There's lots of organizations mobilizing people for protest and all that, good stuff. We're going to do this. So sort of focusing on an audience that really is authentically representative of who you are and the way you want to do things. So optimistic, solutions-oriented. Other things we ask, how do they want to be engaged? They want to learn something, which is an interesting thing for an organization. Okay, what can we teach, like asset framing? They wanted to really enjoy Black creators' work, art, music, literature. You know, they were wanting to enjoy their participation, that sort of thing. So they wanted to have all kinds of experiences, learning, enjoyment, meeting other people. So you can see, all right, these are active sort of people. And when we look at the demographics, so race, ethnicity, gender, age, et cetera, political identification, it's a diverse group. So just through race and ethnicity, it's representative of the general population, upwards of 60% white. And the other racial sort of breakdowns in the group, similar to the general population. On the politics, it was about half identified as Democrats, and then about 25% independent and 20% Republican. So not all, you know, a lot of expectations. People think, oh, it's a bunch of Democrats. Nope. Which gives you ways like, okay, think about how don't write people off because you think you know how they're thinking, right? Avoid political language when you're talking about things. It's today in particular, it's easy to step into politicized language. Focus on the goals and the people doing the work. And there are other things we could say, but those were some of the big findings. Like, this is, and 39 million people, that's plenty to work with.
I think what was really insightful was, one, the diversity of race, the diversity of age, but then, you know, where people stood politically, right? But they're all rallying behind the same goals, but different political stances. How do you motivate such a diverse group of people who are rallied behind the same goals? Because, you know, if you go in with your deeply polarizing messaging, you know, you will eliminate part of this motivated group that wants to come together around the same goal. So how do you step in without the, you know, leading with your polarized messaging?
It's like we said, it's interesting you point this out. Remember, the methodology is we frame things, say, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? What do you think of that? It's because we frame them as very relatable goals that people can relate to and understand. Yes, live a healthy life. Yeah, I can relate to that. Own your own home or business. Yeah, absolutely. So they're relatable goals that a diverse range of people can see themselves in. And putting the spotlight, the stories we're telling are about the leaders, right? The BME family doing the work. People want to support that. So it's kind of as simple as that. You start with goals that people can relate to. And in this case, how I can help achieve those goals is support these leaders. That's not controversial stuff, you know?
And how does this group of builders differ from others in as far as their readiness to act? Like, does it take much to move them in a certain direction, or move them to support a cause that would benefit or that aligns with their common interests and goals?
Yeah, I think it's mostly tactical. What we're seeing right now, and this is a good example. These built 39 million builders, they're on board. You don't need to raise their awareness. You don't need to make them care. You just need to give them opportunities, show them what to do. So it's more tactical, getting to them where they spend their time in the community. Right, BME works in specific communities. Show up, invite people to come together. Online. We look at those tactical things when we do this research. YouTube, for example, #1 social channel for a lot of people. And builders are watching YouTube to learn new things, for entertainment. And I think sports was in there. Okay. And we already know they said they want to see material from Black creators. They want to learn new things. Okay, let's make some content that does that.
Yes.
And so they're getting value out of it. You can learn a lot from a leader building a business, right? And then invite them to support the work. And they were looking to contribute money, get support Black businesses. There was a number of things they're willing to do. So it's then getting to do that work to meet them where they are, where you can find them in the community or online, and then give them an opportunity to contribute in some way.
Yeah, and in pushing and motivation to work, it's not a heavy lift. They're already motivated. They're plugged in. They want to learn more. What role does storytelling play in all of this? Because most often people project when they're telling stories, or it's one-sided, or they're telling stories they want to hear, and it's like, what about your audience?
Right.
What about, so you've got these people who are already motivated. What role does storytelling play?
It's the most critical factor in motivating and mobilizing people, particularly, again, when there's concern that change can't happen or whatever. What the research shows from lots of different work on how to motivate people, seeing somebody else do the thing is what's most likely to make me do the thing. We are most likely to take actions we see others taking that we relate to or respect. So BME's got it built in. Yeah. These are leaders who are doing the work. And that's kind of what defines the audience. People want to support that. So, and we call that the storytelling strategy. You have to be, to your point, the story has to be meaningful to the audience, not just to the teller, right? So in this case, the storytelling strategy is pretty straightforward. Showcase the leaders doing the work, share lessons. That's what I want to learn a lesson from this story, which a lot of folks forget, is how storytelling connects back to framing. If you want somebody to take away an idea from a story, you need to frame it for them. And that's part of storytelling. You have a hero, you have a challenge, right? And you have a lesson or moral of the story. Well, what's the idea? Oftentimes that's how we think to frame the stories. Like, you can make a real difference in the world today. Look at this, right? That's the frame. And there's the story of somebody doing it. That's the story a lot of people need to hear right now.
Now, a lot of folks may say, okay, you got these 39 million builders. They come from diverse backgrounds, but the political divide may be the thing that keeps them from mobilizing together, right? Because at the end of the day, you will retreat back to your political ideology. So what do you say to those who doubt the ability to mobilize such a community of people who are aligned because of the values that they hold dear to them, but they may be on different sides of the political spectrum?
Yep. Going back to the social science on this, has been studied, how do you bridge political divides and social divides of different kind? The path to least resistance is getting people working together on a shared goal, particularly at the local level. A lot of this political polarization is driven by national political narratives, and people caught up in that in media and social media. The voices that get most of the attention are actually a rather small number of very partisan people sort of getting most of the attention in the news media and the cable TV shows and all that stuff. Most of the country is exhausted by all that.
Me included.
Right. One study calls it the exhausted majority. Be the breath of fresh air. You people will respond. So particularly at the local level, back to, that's what BME does. It's the ingredients are all there. These are people in local communities focused on real things. Let's get housing built. Let's build new businesses. Let's teach more kids. Yes, people will come together around to support that sort of thing. And in fact, that's what needs to happen to in fact, bridge those political divides and counter these national political narratives with real people showing up.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to tap into that, and I'll definitely have to look into the study because I'm one of the exhausted people. You know, I'm a news junkie, journalist by trade and training, but I've just like tapped out.
Yeah,
It's just so overwhelming with the salacious, with the negative, with the leading headlines, and I heard Whoopi Goldberg say it on The View. I think she slipped up and said it, but you know, chaos makes money.
yes.
And so there are so many people who are just, we want to do the work, we want to make change, we're just exhausted.
Yep.
And so I appreciate, you know, that point of view. And in this time of deep polarization, and when leaders are just scrambling on where do we go from here, what is next, what are leaders today sourcing you for?
A lot of that. How do we move forward in this polarized environment? And it's interesting because it's a lot of the answers are kind of, well, get back to the basics. What are you trying to achieve? What's your aspirational goal? Mm-hmm. That is not some abstract idea, but a concrete, tangible goal that you're trying to achieve, that people can come together and help you achieve. Who have real focus on who your audience really is. Get real about that, because it's easy to get distracted by all the chaos. A lot of people are worried about, oh, those people over there, the MAGA people, they're the problem. We need to fix them somehow. I get it. Really? Do you think that's part of, you could do that? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think you're much more likely to be able to mobilize people to achieve your goals of your mission. So don't get distracted. Who can help? What specifically can they do? And inspire them to do it. Back to the stories. What are the examples people need to see right now? People who are crossing divides, taking productive action, and making progress. Doesn't mean you have to, people are inspired by work in progress. It doesn't have to be success stories.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, looking in the rearview mirror. Mm-hmm. This is what we're moving toward. Mm-hmm. Those are the ingredients. None of that's fancy or new, but it's interesting because the body of work around bridging social divides, reducing social distance, they call it, between different groups, countering authoritarianism, all comes back to this stuff. Yeah. Human beings showing up to do the work together.
Yeah. Outside of giving you a call, what can folks do? What are one or two actionable steps leaders can take using asset framing to build a movement or mobilize a group of people?
I think it is that, as you said at the beginning, it starts with the aspiration. Get back to, or refresh. If you don't have something you can say in a minute or less, this is the challenge. Mm-hmm. Paint a picture in about a minute of an interesting, exciting vision or goal people can help you achieve. That frames it up for them. Here's where we're trying to go. These are the people who are part of doing it, and this is what we're doing. That's sort of a basic little story there. Mm-hmm. That's sort of what opens the door to the person who wants to write you a check or show up at your meeting or whatever you need them to do. Again, not complicated, mm-hmm. but particularly in the worlds of philanthropy and finance and all that, people get very conceptual. Yeah. And you need to bring it down to earth, put mm-hmm. people in the picture. Mm-hmm. And that's not hard to do. I think it's taking the time to do it and then find your people. Mm-hmm. Back to the builders. Who is my audience for what I am trying to achieve? I guarantee you there's more than enough people in this country that can help you achieve great things. If you think of that audience of builders, 39 million people, you can't and absolutely do not need to mobilize every last one of them, right? Get 1%.
Break yourself, try.
Right. Get 1% of them. If you take, Be Me, but for example, if Be Me got 1% of them to give $10,
Yeah.
you'd quadruple the budget for the work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't think you have to boil oceans and mobilize that scale like that. It only begins anyway. Even if you did mobilize 39 million, it's gonna start with 3. So don't be overwhelmed by the scale of the challenge. Focus on your people doing your thing, and you can scale from there because the tools that we have now to share the story.
Yeah. Yeah. What gives you hope in this climate?
I get to work with the problem solvers, the visionary leaders, the people doing the do in all kinds of things. We work with faith leaders who are mobilizing people to protect democracy in different ways, technologists who are helping democracy organizations use AI to accelerate sort of their impact. Marine scientists studying the ocean, which, by the way, is the source of all life on the planet. The sun and the ocean.
It's the by the way.
Yeah,
This
by
is
the way,
important.
we need to stop messing up the ocean.
Yes.
Anyway, they're the people doing the hard life, risking and life-saving work, to save the planet.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I get to do.
Yeah.
So it's working with scientists and community organizers and faith leaders and people doing all kinds of things like that all over the world on all kinds of issues. That's what gives me hope, because they're doing it. That's what's happening. Let's focus on them, shift our attention there, and stop feeding into the media's attention machine or the politicians' attention machine. That is the biggest, I think, threat, is our attention being drawn to the chaos and disruption rather than to the solution.
Yeah. And this has been refreshing, understanding that there are 39 million folks who are rallied behind causes that mean so much to all of us, and they come from all perspectives, political backgrounds, diverse, and it's not just one side against the other.
Right.
I think that gives me hope. That is a breath of fresh air. Thank you so much for your time and joining the show. Listen, if you want to know more about what Doug is up to, how to connect, check us out at nextnarrative.org. This has been another great episode of From the Source. I'm your host, Benjamin Carlton, and we will see you next time. Thank you.